They're testing. Yeah, we're on. Okay. Yeah, if you haven't done our sign-in sheet at the back table, please do so. I would appreciate it.
That's probably that's.
Everybody, this is Rob Bowden. Rob is on your Punk City Council. He is the conservative wing there, and he's involved in the new program. So while we're killing time, I'm going to let him just give you a brief rundown on it.
Yeah.
You got it. The microphone's live if you want to give
All right. So I'm trying to see where can I start. I wasn't prepared to do it, but I know where to start. How many people think we have a dad problem in Oklahoma?
Dad problem.
How many people think we have a problem with dads in Oklahoma? Yeah. So back in Father's Day, Governor Stitt came out and declared a state of emergency in Oklahoma, and it wasn't weather related, it was dad related. Every metric you look at to show problems with kids nowadays, on up through the whole family structure, it all starts with absent dads. Not just absent dads, but disengaged dads. So the Governor Stitt said we need to fix this problem. I used to work as a CASA worker when I was for the 4th Judicial Court System. With CASA is a court-appointed special advocate. We advocate for the child in the family. And the one thing that I always saw in that was disengaged fathers. Fathers have gotten a bad rap in the public. You hear words like toxic masculinity, and you hear they portray us as Ed Bundys and Homer Simpsons and just other crappy roles. They've taken the man out of manhood, or at least society's tried to do that. So he got with it's Oklahoma Human Services. It's not DHS anymore. It's OHS, and they said fix it. So I left my job, and now I work with Oklahoma State University, and out of the Extension Office in Garfield County. There is a K County representative that coordinates for K County. And basically what we're doing is we're recruiting dads to go through a class to basically teach them to be better dads, more resilient dads. We're going to first teach them how to be a man, and then we're going to teach them how to be a father. Most of the people you'll find, you hear that are in the system, an absent father was the number one reason that they got stuck. So we're trying to break that cycle. So we're using a curriculum that comes from the National Fatherhood Institute. It's called 24/7 Dads. It's research-backed material, and basically takes them and makes them and molds them into a better man. Talks about goal setting, finances, how to budget, how to save money, how to do things with your kid, how to communicate with your kids. It's a whole big list. There's literally 12 weeks worth of thing. It's like I say, it's 12 weeks, 2 hours a session. What they get is they will get a meal when they get there. They get a $5 gas card every time they show up, and then the university pays them $10 for to take the surveys, because coming from a land grant university, they have to do research and the study, so they're going to pay them $10 every survey that they do. And then at the 13th week, we'll have a big celebration for them. And hopefully our goal is to create a better atmosphere and just create better dads and stop the cycle of just bad parenting. So we're pretty excited about it. If you know anybody that from K County that might want to sign up for it, there's some brochures over there I left with Pastor Jack. You can go to strongdads.okstate.edu and look it up there. It tells a little bit more about the program. Or you can go to the National Fatherhood Institute and kind of look at the program from that avenue. So obviously the pizza's not here, so I haven't talked long enough. So, so that's that. Anybody have any questions? I can kind of help with this. We're actively recruiting. Yes, sir. The website is strongdads.okstate.edu, and we'll have some of these over here for you if you need it. And then if they scan that QR code, it takes them to the registration page to do that. Now, you might ask, okay, what type of dad are we looking for? Any type of dad. It could be a young person that's about to be a dad that's never been a dad before. That'd probably be a perfect one to grab right there. It could be divorced dads that are co-parenting. That was the other thing. When they looked at co-parenting classes, which is legislated through your state legislator, whenever you're divorced and you got kids, you have to go to a co-parenting class. The women walk out of that class, they have resource after resource after resource. The dads are standing there like, what do I get? What's in it for me? They're stuck. So this is the fix. This is the proactive steps that we're taking to fix families. So any type of dad, granddads that are dads that are watching their kids. Those are good people. Dads that have been absent from the families for a while are trying to rekindle their lives with their children. Those are the type of dads we want to reach. So no dad is off limits for this program. Yes, sir.
Do you have an electronic copy of this that we can share out on social media or email?
I will. I'll send it to you. Yeah, I do. I don't. I'll have to. If you want to scan this and do it, you can do that. So literally, we are literally building this program right now as I speak. So there was no set thing. They said we're going to build this, so we're kind of taking it from scratch up. So a lot of our marketing and our media and stuff like that is a little lagging behind. Yes, sir.
So it seems like we're losing on the other hand while we're in school, asking to these problems in society, teachers, there is plans to deal with that.
Not that I'm aware of, but I will bring that up. And what's funny about it is this program is being run out of the FCS, which is the family curriculum schools, or basically your home ec. All your old home ec teachers are your ones that teach like co-parenting and stuff like that. When they took home ec out of schools, that's when a lot of this really started going downhill. We started losing a lot of those kids. So yeah, they probably need to really look at putting home ec back in. That could be a question for Ryan Waters. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we want them to be dads. We want them to be dads or expecting to be dads like soon. And then the question we asked, I had asked that I hadn't received a response from the university is if they are a minor, do they have to have special permission from their guardians or something to do the research through the research aspect of it. So, but if they're a teen dad, which I've actually reached out to a few of them down in Garfield County, if they're a teen dad, and those would make perfect Foster dads, that's another one. If you know anybody, it's a foster father. K County, talking to their coordinator, K County will use this as their educational tool for a foster parent.
Where they meet.
Okay, here I believe in K County they're going to meet at Marlon's place out there. I'll get you. Carol Denning is the coordinator for that. But if they register in here, she'll get it and she'll contact them. But in Garfield County, we're going to meet at Oakwood Christian Church. It's kind of a nice central location. That and they have a gym there. So I couldn't think of any better place to have dads come in than a gym, right? A basketball court and weights and all that. Because part of it's health, healthy living and taking care of yourself. So, any other questions? All right. Well, hey, I'm excited about this. Please get excited about this too. This is huge for state of Oklahoma. I mean, this is beyond measure. Probably one of the smartest things our governor's done. That he put into motion. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, is there anybody working with the court system where they can force, let's say, guys that aren't paying child support, force them to pay support?
Excellent question. So, did y'all hear the question? He asked, is there anything that the courts can do? So part of the curriculum is teaching them the financial responsibility of paying their child supports. It's not a payment to the mother or anything like that. It's an investment in their child is what they're making, and that's what they need to learn. It's an investment in that kid. I asked that same question in our in-service, and here's what the answer was from Dr. Cox. The court can order anyone to do anything that they want. It's not legislated, but a court can order it. So one of the areas that I contacted down in Garfield County was the Youth and Family Services, because they're going to oversee the family court. So I want to get those guys, because a lot of times in your family court, those are people that their kids have been taken away from them, and a lot of times when they get the kid, they have certain steps that they have to take to get their kids back. And then you have other parts of the family court where the mother and dad are fighting over custody and who's the better parent, or whatever the argument is. So this gives a dad the tool to say, look, I've been through a class. Moms have, I think there's MOPS, it's endless, the classes that moms have to take to be better moms. This is the only thing that's going to be out there for dads right now. I mean, there are church-based things that are out there, but this is the only research-proven curriculum so far that's been proven to actually work. So, all right.
Sounds like a great program, but you're excited to get me involved with it.
Yeah, I am stoked.
All right. Folks, you Ponca City voters, you're fortunate to have Rob on your city council here. Okay. Oh, and the pizzas are here, folks. So go ahead and grab your food. We'll go ahead and take a few minutes yet before we start up, so you got a chance to get some pizza in you. So go grab them. I didn't have to ask Gary Williams twice. All right, is everybody that wanted pizza got it? All right, we're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. And let me get my notes here. As always, we're going to start with our prayer, and we are blessed to have Pastor Jack, our host for the last almost 4 years. Pastor Jack, could I get you to lead us in prayer? Pastor Jack Adams, everybody.
Man, I want to welcome you all here. This is very important meetings, and we don't go to the southern border, but I know somebody that's been there, and we're going to hear about that today. Father, I just want to thank you for this wonderful opportunity to come together. And Lord, you see our nation. We ask, God, that you would give us wisdom in how to help and better this nation. And Lord, I pray that you put your hands upon the service, that you would bless it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. And Bill Cunningham, you veteran Brownwater Navy, isn't that what they called y'all? Yeah, he was on those river patrol boats in Vietnam. He's had an exciting life. If you'll lead us in the pledge, please, Bill. Oh. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Okay, let's do a few quick introductions and we'll get on with our program. Let's see. Pastor Jack, Stephen Phipps, back in the corner in the audio-visual booth. This meeting wouldn't happen if it wasn't for Stephen. Give him a hand. We also have one of our coordinators from Garfield County. Stand up, Scott. I am. Yeah. That's my line. He's stealing my humor here. Scott's been with us for, about 3 years now? Yeah. And they do the meetings over in Enid. If you have any friends in Enid, tell them about our chapter over there. They meet at it's a VFW building? DAB building in the old train station. All right, and Joe Baden. Joe, where are you at? Oh, there he is. He doesn't need to stand up. Joe is our K County chairman for the GOP for K County, and he's got one or two short announcements, and then we'll get to...
Just want to let you guys know that we are doing a booth at the fair this year. That's September 12th through the 17th, I think it is. So come out and see us. We'd love to have someone, if anyone wants to come help work the booth, or at least come hang out with me and keep me company. And we'll be launching our fundraiser at the fair. It's a raffle. Not going to talk a whole lot about it here, but if you have questions, come see me afterwards.
I do know this much. What you can win in the raffle is something that everybody in this room would love to have. Okay. I want to mention a few words about our program today. Who in here is familiar with Americans for Prosperity, AFP? Okay, well, I'll make the others a little bit familiar. They were instrumental in getting our new state superintendent of education, Ryan Walters, elected. They were pounding that campaign hard and heavy. Yeah, give them a hand. They had, these are the two that went to the southern border at Yuma, and this program is fascinating. So this is Michael Morrison here, and this is Bradley Ward. And I'll give you all the microphone and get out of your way.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to come out and visit with us and learn a little bit more. My name's Michael Morrison. I'm our Director of Grassroots Operations at Americans for Prosperity, and I'm joined today by Bradley Ward, who is our Deputy State Director for the Oklahoma chapter. We recently took,
Sorry.
Bradley Bradley's an Afghan veteran, U.S. Army veteran, has a doctorate in education policy. He's brand new and he's hitting the ground running. Let me tell you, we are blessed to have him. And I think with that, I'll pass it over to Bradley. And if we just want to kick it off and let's talk about what we saw in Yuma, Arizona.
So, how many of you are familiar with the border crisis going on? And I say border crisis because it's truly a border crisis that we've seen. Especially me and Michael were very fortunate to go down to, I'll just go ahead and play this real quick. So over the last 30 years, this is the number of apprehensions of illegal immigrants that have come through the U.S. southern border. As you can see over time, it deflated, it went all the way down, and then when the Biden administration came into effect, I'm going to go ahead and replay this. When the Biden administration came into effect, you can see that we had the largest spike in illegal immigration at our southern border in this country's history. So, and this is data that's coming directly to us from the U.S. Border Patrol. So you can see here that just this year alone, we've had just shy of 2 million illegal apprehensions and encounters at the southern border. And this is the highest that we've seen in the history of our country. So this is true. When me and Michael characterize this as a border crisis, this is literally a border crisis that is happening.
And I just want to point out that when you're looking at 2 million captures, I want you to think about how many people that are coming across the southern border that are getting away, right? That are not being apprehended. So when we're talking about a spike in captures, that absolutely translates over to a spike in illegal immigration as a whole that we're not even seeing and tracking.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the southern border is about approximately 2,000 miles. It goes all the way from Brownsville, Texas, all the way across to the west coast, all to the border of the Pacific Ocean in California. Across that southern border, the U.S. Border Patrol has capacity along those 2,000 miles to hold 5,000 individuals. Right now, over time, as you can see here, represented by the green bars, the Border Patrol has been in custody of over 5,000 illegal immigrants at one time. Currently, right now, current custody is almost 240% of the capacity, meaning the resources, the manpower, the facilities that Border Patrol can actually hold. So at the end of July, they were in custody of almost 12,000 individuals, but they only have the facilities and capacity to hold 5,000. The Biden administration has not equipped them with the tools, resources, funding, and necessities in order to hold the influx of illegal immigrants that are coming across our southern border. Me and Michael, when we went to Yuma, Arizona, we were able to see some of these facilities. We were not able to go inside some of the facilities, but we were able to see some of the facilities outside. So we know they exist. We know the capacity they're able to hold, and we saw them for ourselves.
Yeah, and I just want to say that when we're talking about 239% of these folks, or 239% over capacity. Let's think about overwhelming the personnel, right? We got to talk to some of those folks on the ground, those Border Patrol folks, and it's absolutely taking a toll on morale and the overall ability to do their job, not only when you're that far over population, I guess you would say, or not logistically, but at your infrastructure, your personnel are far overwhelmed as well.
Yeah. So the day before the 2020 presidential election, Yuma, Arizona Border Patrol, they were having about 25 crossings a day. When me and Michael spoke with the border chief down there, they were on average seeing over 1,000 cross the border every day, just in the Yuma sector. So you go from 25 to over 1,000 daily. And like Michael said, that puts strain and capacity on resources, operational manpower, facilities, equipment. The Yuma sector doesn't have the manpower or the personnel or the equipment to keep up with the influx down there. And when they have this many people in capacity, within their capacity that they're legally responsible for, that takes U.S. Border Patrol off the wall, doing roving security and patrol, taking them away from the wall, and then doing administrative paperwork and food services and everything else to provide care for these people. So it's shifting the operational mission because of the mass influx and the overfunding and capabilities that that the Biden administration has not afforded them. So just to give you some brief by the numbers, as we said, about 2 million, just shy of 2 million people have crossed the border so far this year that they've actually been able to encounter and apprehend. there's been 146 people that have been apprehended on the U.S. Homeland Security's terrorist watch list. So these aren't people that just posted mean comments on Facebook and social media. These are people that actually have been identified by our national security agencies to pose a serious harm and threat to our communities, our children, our public safety.
And actually, I think it was a week or maybe 2 weeks prior to us arriving at the border, they caught 4 known Afghan terrorists coming across the border and somewhere where there was not infrastructure, there was no wall built, and they were hiking through the mountains. The Biden administration has deemed these mountains in Arizona to be a geographical wall, a geographical deterrent. I don't know how many folks besides Bradley here have been to Afghanistan, but it's pretty hilly, and I don't think it's much of a deterrent for known terrorists.
No, absolutely not. We talk about the drug crisis. So just at the southern border alone, there's over 460,000 pounds of illegal narcotics that have crossed the southern border. That includes methamphetamines, pills, fentanyl, marijuana, cocaine, the whole bit. If you want to talk about just fentanyl itself, last year on the southern border alone, Border Patrol seized almost 15,000 pounds. Already in this fiscal year, it's almost 24,000 pounds of fentanyl. So it's going up. The more illegal immigration increases on our southern border, the more fentanyl is crossing our borders. In fact, 51% of the fentanyl that comes through this country actually goes through Arizona. Mostly the Yuma sector, and we were able to directly see that and hear from the people that deal with this day in and day out. We do have a fentanyl crisis in this country, and even in Oklahoma, and I'll speak about that here in a few slides and give you the data points on that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, I was talking to the chief of the Border Patrol, former Yuma sector, Chief Clems, and he told me, he said, a couple days prior to you showing up, we caught 200 pounds, and it's estimated to be at a street value of 20 cents a dose. 20 cents a dose, and a dose can kill you.
And then there's been over 346,000 notice to appears granted for immigrants. Now, if you're not familiar with our judicial court system for immigration, I'll give you a quick 20-second spiel on notice to appear. So right now there is a significant backlog, probably dating to about 10 to 15 years in our immigration courts. That's how bad it is for people that are looking to gain asylum, gain residence here, passports, green cards, etc. So because of the influx, what happens is when Border Patrol takes them and apprehends them into custody, they're now in U.S. legal custody. What happens from there is U.S. Border Patrol is not responsible for that mission. They actually hand that off to ICE, Immigration, Homeland Security, it depends. Those other federal agencies don't have capacity. So what happens is the Biden administration has ordered them that within 72 hours of encounterment, meaning when they encounter them in Yuma, Arizona, Border Patrol from that time has 72 hours to process them, determine if they need medical needs, health, etc., find out if they pose a threat, if they can be voluntarily transferred to any of these agencies. If they can't, what they do is they grant them a notice to appear, and it requires them to go to before an immigration judge, which in a certain amount of period of time, in order to go back and plead their case for asylum. So essentially they're given a get out of jail free card and say, hey, this is your date, this is the city you need to appear before an immigration judge, please show up at this date.
Right. And let me add some clarity to that, because it's not a Yuma, Arizona problem. This is not an Arizona problem. When you come across the border, and all you have to do is walk across through the big holes in the wall, you throw your hands up, and you say, I give up. You go through that 72-hour process, and then you can relocate anywhere in the United States, and that's where they make your court date. So this doesn't stop in Arizona. You're not expected to be in court in Arizona. This is a Middle America problem. This is a Northeast. I mean, this is a United States problem, because when you can dictate, okay, well, I want to go to New York, where I know the capacity is higher and the court dates take longer. I can go live in New York for 5, 10, however many years until I see that court date, and that's if I go to the court date. So,
Right, that's a great point. So we talked about fentanyl. And I want to touch base about fentanyl here in Oklahoma. And I called it a crisis because it is a crisis. As you've seen here, over the last few years, the amount of fentanyl seized by our law enforcement agencies throughout Oklahoma is continuing to rise. Last year in 2022, we had about 128 pounds of fentanyl. And again, like Michael said earlier, just what was it? The fatality of fentanyl or fentanyl? It's just like an ounce or?
One dose.
Yeah,
can kill
one
you.
dosage can kill you. And we're talking about 128 pounds that was seized. This year, so far alone, according to the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, it's about 60 pounds that have been found in Oklahoma.
I think it's far less than pounds.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, it's crazy, like lethal.
Yes, yeah, it's something that it's enough that could fit in a capsule. You take it in pill form or a capsule form, and that's a dose, and you can die.
So, and then fentanyl doses in Oklahoma, let's just look at this over the years. So as more illegal immigrants come across our border, seize fentanyl, and it's trafficked across the United States, just in the last few years, there's been a 778% increase in fentanyl overdoses right here in Oklahoma. That's just in Oklahoma. Last year alone, it was almost 500 fentanyl overdoses. So when people talk about that's an Arizona problem, that's a California problem, that's a Texas problem, because we don't have southern border in Oklahoma. Every state right now is a border state. And I want to say that again. Every state in America right now is a border state because of this crisis that's happening. It's manufactured in China. It's smuggled and backpacked across the southern border by illegal immigrants. It comes across the United States, it hits our highway systems, it hits the distribution channels for the cartel, and it finds its way into Oklahoma, into our schools, our communities. It's live, and it's happening here. And this data is showing you that it's real. Almost 500.
How much of the overdose is death?
Excuse me?
How much is death? How many die of the overdose?
Yeah. So.
Right. That's the figure. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That is the figure.
Death overdoses.
Deaths due to fentanyl
death.
overdoses. So just 500 alone. The data isn't out for 2023, but just 500 alone last year. That's crazy. Almost an 800% increase in the last 5 years. I mean, it's continuing to grow year after year after year.
And I'm sure many of you guys are seeing in the news and in the media, the cartels are figuring out ways to cut these drugs with different things, and it's preventing the Narcan, which is the drug that saves you when you start to overdose. It's preventing that from actually working. So I would anticipate that number to rise.
We're hear from our local law enforcement here in Oklahoma. We heard from Border Patrol. We heard from law enforcement in Arizona. This is able to be cut up and refined into Skittles candy, Halloween candy. You can throw it into mixed drinks, etc. You can ingest this several different ways. So the ways that it can impact our children, our families, our communities is almost limitless. And it's just crossing the border. They were even telling us in Yuma, Arizona, that the Mexican cartels are actually using drones to fly them across the border and then pin pot. So what happens is one personnel will be on the U.S. side of the border, and the cartel operating the drone will be on the other side. They'll take their iPhone, they'll pin drop the location, and somebody on the Mexican side of the border will literally use a drone, fly it, drop it on that pin mark from an Apple Watch, and then somebody will pick it up, and that's how it's moved across. So they don't even actually need, bodies necessarily to get large amounts across the southern border now.
I tell you what I think what we'll do is we'll just save all the questions for the end, and then we'll field them all, because we may answer your question throughout the presentation, but we will absolutely open up for Q&A afterwards.
And I'm happy to go back and reference the slide or anything if you need to as well. So by citizenship, I really want to bust up a myth. A lot of people think that this is just a United States-Mexico problem, and we just need to figure this out. So speaking with Border Patrol and looking into the data from it, actually currently right now at our southern border, only 30% of the illegal immigration is actually coming directly from Mexico. 70% of the illegal immigration, that 2 million number, that 1.9 million number that I showed you, 70% of that is actually from other countries, as far as away from India, Russia, and China. And I'm going to break it down here for a little bit. It's coming from Central America, Russia, China, and Afghanistan.
And I just want to point out the 30% number is not an increased number. The 30% number has stayed the same.
Yeah.
Right? It's the other 70% that's on the rise.
And then this is a world map. It's pretty tiny, but we coordinated with Border Patrol and we looked at the data that they're actually encountering. So this is all along the southern border. When they encounter people, they apprehend them. They go through the process of identifying where they come from. They interrogate them, etc. almost 6,800 just this year alone have come from Russia. Over 12,000 have come from China. Over 30,000 have come from India, 10 from Afghanistan, Prussia, Brazil, Central America, even Canada. I don't know why people from Canada are going all the way to the southern border, but hey, you bad travel agent, I guess. And Michael will talk about this really quickly. This is actually a live shot that I took just directly at the southern border in Yuma.
I don't know if you can see this up here, but this is it's tough to see. But what that is I was talking to Chief Clem, that gentleman I told you about, the former Yuma sector chief, and he was outlining these people aren't just coming from Mexico. And so as I'm walking down the wall, about, I want to say probably 50 yards away from the wall, that is actually a Peruvian passport. So that is somebody who came in, dropped their Peruvian passport, which is a shame because now I don't know how they're going to board the plane to go to Middle America. But it's sitting in the dirt here, and it made everything so real. You can look at these things and you can see numbers and you can listen to us and hear statistics. But when you see it in person and you look down on the ground and you realize this was a person that traveled all the way across the world to sneak into this country, it's very sobering, to say the least.
And just in our own backyard in Arizona, Border Patrol has found documentation, clothing with Russian and Chinese, apparel and language. They found fake passports. They found real passports all the way from India, the Middle East, Russia, China, South Asia. I mean, it's real. And Michael just actually stepping over this passport and saying, "Bradley, come here, look at this." It was like Michael just, characterized fantastically. It just hit us wow, this is real. This is truly happening. Okay, so this is the southern border. As I said, it goes all the way from the Rio Grande Valley sector all the way to about the San Diego, again, the coast of California. It's about 2,000 miles long. The Border Patrol, it's about 9 sectors. They divided in 9 sectors across the southern border. This little red circle shows where me and Michael spent our time with U.S. Border Patrol in the Yuma sector. The Yuma sector is really geographically centered for a high concentration of traffic due to its location, because it's very close to the Colorado River, San Diego, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Tucson. So once you're in Yuma, it's a pretty clear path to these great metropolitan areas where you can get lost in the large, dense populations, etc. The Yuma Border Patrol is about 126 miles wide. So the Yuma sector that we visited, that we were able to see, it's about 126 miles long that they have operational authority over. And then this is a picture of us pulling into the facility. Because we partnered with the U.S. Border Patrol and we had good arrangements, we were not allowed to take pictures inside because they're processing people and they have, officers. They don't want their faces shown. And they have a lot of, operational security initiatives inside. So we didn't take pictures inside. Michael, you want to go into this panel that we went through?
I will, but I'm going to lean on you for the names here because I am terrible with names. Right here in the Hawaiian shirt, or it looks like a Hawaiian shirt, it's really a camouflage shirt, that's Chief Clem. That's the former Border Patrol chief of the Yuma sector, the gentleman I keep referencing. On his left would be the mayor of Yuma, and forgive me because I'm blanking on his name. That is the police chief standing with the microphone. That is the sheriff of Yuma, Arizona. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, is this the mayor of, no, okay.
I think he was a county commissioner.
Okay, county commissioner in Yuma. But what he's standing up and saying right now is he's describing how the sheriff's office in Yuma, due to lack of federal government support for the U.S. Border Patrol, is having to pick up the slack to prevent the crime and to get some of these folks off the streets in, processed, whatever their path is once they reach America. He's having to, his organization, or his office is having to, they're having to facilitate and help out of their funding to do all this stuff, and they don't have the resources to continue to do that.
Yeah.
So they're just being stretched really thin in Yuma, period.
So I talked about the influx that are crossing the southern border. So because of that and the amount of people they have in their capacity, so because of that, because there's so many being captured and apprehended by the Yuma Border Patrol, they only have so much manpower, facilities, and personnel and equipment to hold this influx. So what they have to do is they have to go in the rear back to the border security headquarters, do a lot of the administrative paperwork. So they actually had to sign a memorandum of understanding and cooperative agreement with the local law enforcement and the county so that they could almost essentially be, in a way, deputized to go and do roving security patrols on the border, the local police. So that actually takes them away from governing the actual municipal cities and everything doing their job, and now they're sitting down covering and doing the border patrol. So again, it's because of what's happening and the more strain and the less resources and funding and help they're getting from the Biden administration. So they've had to work with the municipal and county partners in order to try to make this work. This is actually the border. So when we pulled up here, this is a picture of what the border looks like.
And that's a rare view. If we can just go back to that, I want you guys to remember this. This is a rare view because this is actually a portion of the wall where you don't see a hole.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind,
Yeah.
because we're going to keep going here.
So here, this is actually called the Yuma Gap. It was actually a big gap in the Border Patrol. As you can see, the wall there is not finished. They do have some steel barriers and concrete barriers there, but as you can see here, the wall is not finished there. So anyone, and even Michael and me, were actually able to actually cross from one side to the other going through this Yuma sector.
I went to Mexico without my passport.
We did. Yeah, we did. Yeah. No, we actually went across the whole way. Yeah. So we did good. These right here are these mountains that are directly across from the Yuma border wall. So what the Border Patrol was telling us is that the cartel will actually use these mountains as a terrain advantage to actually study and scout roving patrols and security operations of the Border Patrols. So what they'll do is they'll look to see where the Yuma sector is during that time of day or like day or week. And what they'll do is they'll radio in or they'll use telecommunications to tell coyotes in the field, hey, the Border Patrol is along mile marker so-and-so. You need to go and take your people that are in custody to this side of the border, et cetera. So they're actually able to use that elevation to their advantage to actually scout roving patrols and get past some of the roving security.
And the cartels have 100% turned this into an industry. They have turned this into something that they profit off of. Anybody coming into the United States illegally goes through the cartel.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. Thank you. So we spoke with the border chief down there and the former Border Patrol. As Michael said, it is a business. The cartel owned. This is actually a legal industry down there. It's estimated, I think, to be about $3 billion a year, if not more. No one crosses the border without the cartel's permission and without funding. Everyone is traveled and smuggled with a coyote or with cartel permission. And what you'll see there on the ground is you actually see bands, different colored bands, and depending on what color they are, that's how much money they owe. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll separate families intentionally, and they'll send the mom or dad across, and then they'll wait until the mom or dad has a working job or stable conditions in the United States. They send money back to Mexico, to the cartel, in order to smuggle the children across. So they separate families intentionally to jack up the prices in order to create basically an industry.
Right, and it's 100% extortion. They don't tell these folks that going into this. You believe that you're going through one sector and maybe your wife's going through another sector for some kind of operational reasons, and then once one person is in, at that point they have you right where they want you, and it's a money game. The cartels are fighting with each other over this. Well, I think what the scariest part of this is for me is that if you're not able to find a job and pay, they have jobs for you, like backpacking fentanyl, like selling drugs, like running some of these illegal operations or these hubs in the United States. So don't worry if you can't find a job quick enough or you don't have the $5,000 they need, they'll let you pay it off.
It's basically servitude. It's basically like modern day slavery. Essentially, if you can't pay the ransom in order to get across the border, you basically go to work for the cartels. You work off your debt by working for them. So it's modern day slavery, and it's a financial transaction business for them. Border Patrol told us, depending on how far away they're coming from, their nationality, and how hard it is to cross the border, if they're coming in a large pack, a family unit, etc., it can range anywhere from $5,000 all the way to $250,000 just across the border. And again, 1.9 million people this year alone have come across the border. No one is getting across the border without paying. So just think about the money, the business, the industry the cartel has going for them.
And it's troubling too, because I just want to put it into perspective. The cartels, I don't have to tell anybody in this room, are obviously very heartless and bad people. If you die on your backpack trip with your fentanyl, if you didn't find your water drop or your water supply and you die in the desert in Arizona, they will just have somebody dropped off at that backpack. They will pick it up off the body, leave the body, and they will continue hiking the fentanyl into the country.
They began our, this is actually Michael on the Mexico side of the border. I told him not to go, but he went, and then I followed him. But he went across the border to the Mexican side, and there's a roving patrol of one of the U.S. Border Patrol trucks going there, so I had to snap a picture of Michael in Mexico. But one of the videos they showed us while we were there, it was actually live footage taken less than a week ago. It was a member of the cartel actually on a motorcycle, right, I believe, dropping a less than 1-year-old child off in Yuma, Arizona at their sector, and wearing nothing but a white t-shirt with a phone number. And dropped the child less than 1 year old right at the border, drove away back to the Mexican side. This child was malnourished, it was dehydrated, it had no clothing. It literally all it had was a white t-shirt, and in black Sharpie on the shirt was just a phone number of their spouse or their parental guardian that was already here in the United States. Luckily, within a few minutes, Border Patrol was able to see it because of the technology and surveillance and resources they had. And someone in our group actually asked them, how often does this happen? They said multiple times a day. We're talking about someone that's less than 1 year old, someone that's defenseless, innocent. Like, they can't help themselves, they can't communicate, they can't do anything. And
oh, go ahead.
And this is the situation that's happening on a repeated basis every day.
And that's what happens when you can make the payment, or you agree to push the drugs wherever you're at. What would have happened to that child if that parent wouldn't have been able to come up with that money? The best case scenario for that child was to be dropped, right? But what happens to that child otherwise? This is 100% a cartel-run business.
Yeah, and the phone numbers are mostly going to pedophiles that have bought them.
Maybe. I mean, maybe, unfortunately.
I don't have any evidence, or any, nobody's told us that, but okay. Alrighty.
Here's a video. So this is us as we're approaching
It's black. It's not.
Oh no.
Well, this is that's a shame, because what we're actually trying to show you.
Let me
Right.
see.
Okay.
Let me see if it'll go. Okay. So as we're approaching, this is the border wall in Yuma, Arizona. As we're approaching it, as we're about to make our stop and actually get out and see the wall, get boots on ground, I want you to take a notice at something that you see here. Cranes, material, construction material, all sorts of good things, right? So as we're approaching this wall, me and Michael see all these materials, and we're like, what is all this stuff? Like, what is going on here? There's actually steel beams that actually go to the walls, like piles, and like this actually goes on. This is only a quick snippet, but this actually goes on for like a good mile or so. So a large amount of construction equipment, operational necessities, and you'll see here that it's actually enclosed by a fence, and it's actually manned by security. That's actually, and I'll play it again for you all. This is actually the materials that are needed to build and finish the wall. They've already been bought and paid for by U.S. taxpayer dollars. So they've already been paid for. We've already been taxed. The materials have already been purchased. The contracts have already been signed to build the wall. And now, due to the Biden administration executive order, the construction has stopped. And these materials are just sitting here dormant. They're getting here. Like, again, you can see here the materials that are just waiting to be used to finish the wall, and they're not being used. In fact, the U.S. Senate estimates that U.S. taxpayers are funding $130,000 a day just to guard and maintain these materials that have already been bought and paid for. That's about $48 million a year to just provide awareness for where these materials are instead of already using them. So we've already been taxed once in order to fund the wall, and now we're being taxed again to just monitor the materials because the Biden administration refuses to build the wall.
That's all our questions, please. That's all the questions that come after.
We built a wall around the unbuilt wall. I don't know if you see the irony in that, but that's crazy. And what you hear oftentimes from mainstream media is these supplies are no good anymore. They're not usable. We can't build a wall with these anymore. They're just sitting there. They're waste. Well, I don't know if you watch this video, but I don't see much of a difference in between that standing wall and what's laying here on the ground. I think it looks pretty usable. But a perfect example. I can't see a difference.
And then there they are right there. Like, those are the beams that are yet to be constructed, have already been bought and paid for by taxpayer dollars.
It's
right.
black again.
Oh, let me see. There we go. So yeah, here are the materials, like Michael said. They're not decayed, they're not inefficient, they're ready to be used. They're literally 2 feet away from the unfinished border, and they're not being utilized. I thought this was just, in a sense, sad, but in a way comical when you hear statements from the Biden administration, like Michael was saying these materials were purchased, but they're no longer being able to be used. They're sitting there right next to the border, but they're not, being utilized.
And I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I've been hearing through the media that now the Biden administration has talks of auctioning these things off.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, what that says to me is we need to auction them off in case we lose an election, so we cannot build the wall, which would then require us to repurchase the wall.
Yeah. An additional supplemental appropriation through Congress to buy the materials again, to do a processing, to discover the contracts, to bid on contracts in order to do this whole process over again. So there's no momentum, there's no progress whenever the next administration gets in. Here's another picture of the border wall. So this is as we're leaving our border trip. This is a picture of the unfinished wall. As you can see here, this is a significant gap. This is all along the Yuma sector. So you have wall, you have rocks, you have wall, wall, and then you have big gap, wall, you have big gap. It's just like periodically all throughout it. So when you hear talks of there's no holes in the walls, or like, oh, it's just a few steel beams, it's not really significant, you can get a few cars through that. You can get a few semis through that. Like, these are pretty large. So when we say gaps in the wall, this is the size. Like, this is a huge gap, and it's periodically all throughout the wall.
And I don't know how closely you guys can see on this screen right here, but if you look further down where you see the wall go like this, but then it curves back around. Well, it's supposed to curve back around. There's a equal-sized hole right further down where that tree line is, and then you see the wall pick back up. So I want you to think about the Border Patrol trying to sit here and make sure no one's coming in this sector or this big hole, while the coyotes up in the mountains are telling their friends, well, they're over here, send them through that way. And then as soon as, it doesn't matter, as soon as you step foot on soil, then you can give up and your 72-hour process starts. So it literally is a game of feet just getting across that big hole in the wall.
Here's another picture. There's a picture of some of our group, including Michael, going into Mexico. I went to. It was cool. Here's a picture of me by the wall. Here's a picture of Michael by the wall. These beams are about, depending on the geographical location, range anywhere from about 35 to 40 foot. and I can't even get my wrist between beams. So a lot of people, you'll hear, the border wall is ineffective even where it is erected and it actually is built. Like, people can just go between the bars, or they can climb over the bars, they can get a ladder. I can assure you, you could probably spend half a day, if not more, at Lowe's or Home Depot, and you're not getting over this wall. Like, this wall, when it's erected, when it's actually standing up, when we actually use the materials that were intended for, and you actually construct and build the wall, it works. Like, it works. And like, you're not getting under it, you're not burrowing under it, you're sure not climbing over it, and you're not getting through it. So where the wall is constructed and where it's actually built, it's working. It's a deterrent. It's not an end result, it's a deterrent. But it does work. And me and Michael wanted to stand next to it just to show people, I'm a pretty short person, but even Shaquille O'Neal would have a hard time getting over this wall. It's 40 feet. It's very large.
Right.
And with the temperature there, I think it was 100 plus degrees while we were there. These beams are like melting hot. So you're not going to climb and like grab over it and climb over it. It's just you can't.
It really is. It really is an illusion because the beams are V-shaped, right? So when he says you can't stick your whole forearm through it, he's not exaggerating. And an important part of this to remember is the physical wall itself, the infrastructure itself, is not the only piece that plays into this, right? It's the large deterrent, right? It's what makes it take 2-3 hours to get across instead of 30 seconds. But we need those pieces, and when people talk about the wall, they don't talk about this. Included in this wall is technology, right? Drones, all sensors, all kinds of things that raise Border Patrol's awareness as soon as this stuff happens. So the wall slows people down significantly if they can even possibly get over that. I mean, I couldn't, but I can tell you right now, implementing the media makes it sound like it's just one big wall and that's all we're talking about. The wall has so many more pieces to it than just steel beams.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you have tall gates, you're able to actually have sensors, drones, surveillance, satellites, materials. You're actually able to have roving patrols that can actually go out there and do your job. When you actually have significant gaps like this, the cartel has the elevation advantage across the way. They have the intelligence, they have the funding, they have the operational needs, they have the patience and the time. The Biden administration is not engaging on this front. They have nothing but time in order to study and figure out how to get away with this. When Border Patrol is on the other side and they have massive gaps like this all along the border, the cartel can usually use telecommunication capabilities all day and say, okay, they're at this coordinate, you just need to go to the other gap right now. And it's just a chess game.
Yeah, and just to draw it all back together, so the Biden administration is not funding properly to these other organizations that are supposed to be helping or detaining these folks, right? So 72 hours is what it takes to the most you can hold somebody. So you have to in-process somebody, then out-process somebody in that 72-hour period. That is pulling people away from these big holes in the wall. Yep. That is pulling those people in the trucks, on the four-wheelers, on foot, away from those holes, and they're overwhelmed back at headquarters, and all the while, this is just left completely open.
And one thing we don't have pictures of, at least I have pictures, but not in this presentation. As you can see here, just to the right of your screen, that vegetation. So right in front of the border wall, as you come across their border, there's nothing but vegetation and farmland for probably a couple miles until you actually get back into the greater Yuma City area. 70% of Yuma's economy is based off agriculture. We actually had a guy there from the agricultural industry that told me about 95% of the lettuce and vegetation that you buy from the supermarket, most of it comes from Yuma. I mean, that is their economy. So what happens when these illegal immigrants come across the border, they immediately go into the vegetation in the fields. Why? Because it provides coverage from them, from satellites, from roving patrols, etc. Well, now that's contaminated crops. That's contaminated food. So now that food cannot be used. They go in the fields, they defecate, they change clothes, they sleep in it, they smash, the roots, the plants, they actually take them in order to eat. So now it's actually affecting the local economy, the food industry, and the supply channels, because they've actually had one of the farmers and agricultural leaders from Yuma was actually talking about they've had to burn and like destroy entire fields and start over because of this. So like not only does it affect, and put strain on the Border Patrol, but actually impacts like the supply of goods, services, and food that we come across, and impacts local border communities like that. So something to think about as well. That is the conclusion of our presentation. So we certainly appreciate you all taking time out of your demanding schedule to visit with us. So
Now, question time. Yeah, give him a big hand. The regulars know the deal, but for the new people that are here, the way we do questions at my meeting, you'll be called up, raise your hand when you're called on. If you can, stand so it'll make it easier for everyone to hear your question. And please get right to your question. This isn't speech time. We don't need to know why you're asking the question. Ask the question, and that way everybody here that has a question will have the time and the opportunity to ask it. I'll get out of your way.
yeah, go ahead, sir.
Why can't each state, that's a sovereign state, like Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, why can't they put the National Guard out there on the border? They're invading our country. Why can't they have a right to shoot, kill? I'm not cruel, but I do not.
Let him answer your question now.
I do not like what's going on. Our government's just letting people run over us.
Well, I can't speak to shooting and killing or anything like that, but what I can tell you is our governor here in the state of Oklahoma deployed our National Guard down to the southern border in Texas.
Yeah, and I believe about 12 other Republican governors, including Governor Stitt here in Oklahoma, have deployed National Guard assets and troops to various sectors across the southern border to deal with this. And those governors have stepped up and they said that the federal government is not going to do their constitutional duty to protect our southern borders. The states are going to do it.
And what?
Next question is this lady here.
Yes. At one time, the Mexican controllers down there were supposed to have control over these people coming across. Is the Mexican government not doing anything to stop people coming across? At one time, they were supposed to be able to do a policing.
Well, so we did talk about, that question was posed in our closed door meeting with the current Border Patrol, and they assured us that they are doing everything they can, working closely with the Mexican government. I think what we're seeing here is a different problem than maybe we've seen in the past, and that is that we're seeing so many people from other places flown in, right, versus just Mexican nationals crossing the border. It was that 30 and 70% slide that we showed you earlier. I do think the government of Mexico is doing what they can with the resources they have, but I also think that this is an overwhelming problem.
Yeah. Yes.
500,000 pounds of drugs is confiscated. If somebody gets caught with a backpack, 20 pounds of fentanyl, are they arrested or do they just confiscate drugs? And
No, so that's a great question. Thank you, and thank you for the distinction. Yeah, so if they come across and they're engaged in an illegal activity, they're smuggling children or they smuggling adults or people across the border. If they're engaged in criminal activity like guns or drug smuggling, they are actually held accountable with criminal activity and sanction. So yeah, it's not they're just going to seize the materials and then send them back. So no, that's a good question. We are taking action regarding that.
But most people, and just for clarification, most people aren't doing that. Yeah. Most people are coming here and saying, okay, you got me, I give up, now send me where I want to go. Right, so.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you guys have any percentages of how many people actually show up for recording dates on that catch and release?
So
Just out of curiosity.
they've actually tried to I think one of the Senate Oversight Committees is actually trying to ask U.S. Homeland Security and our immigration system regarding this now. I don't have those numbers offhand, but I do know that even Senator Langford, I was up in D.C. in July, and even he was having this discussion with me about even he wanted answers regarding that. So I don't know if there's a specific number out there, but it'd be a great statistic to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking at I have a bunch of those statistics typed up already. I thought maybe I had it.
Follow up
Yeah.
on the other question you had. send a group of 2 or 3 people to purposefully draw Border Patrol to catch them so that they can send people drugs in someplace else.
Yeah, that is true. Thank you. So, yes. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so if Border Patrol apprehends someone, they step foot on U.S. soil, they're okay. What if the sheriff's department stops them or anyone else? Are they able to?
It's the same situation. They're turned over to Border Patrol, in which they have, again, that 72 hours to in process and out process, because that's the maximum amount of time they're allowed to hold those folks.
They're required to.
Right, and they're required to apprehend them. Yes.
They're required to turn them over to feds.
Yes, I would.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not. The sheriff's office isn't taking them to the county jail. They're being turned over to go through the process. Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and it's very important for all of us to know, but the 2 words I keep thinking of and keep hearing is amnesty and citizenship. And the ultimate goal of the Biden crime family and the Biden governor policy is to get citizenship and amnesty to all these illegals, because they want to take away the next election so we don't have a chance.
What's your question?
Well, I'm just making a statement.
No, we're not doing, we're doing questions. If we have time later, then we'll do statements. There's a lot of questions. And if we let everybody make a speech, there won't be time for everybody to ask a question.
Thank you. I just had a question. Vice President Kamala Harris is going to all over South America.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Kamala Harris,
Yeah.
our Vice President, is going over South America asking all kinds of questions. What is she supposed to be doing now? Remember, she was supposed to be the czar of the border, and I haven't heard anything about her doing all this mess. Have you heard anything about Kamala Harris, our border czar?
Yeah, so the Biden administration on day 1 signed 3 executive orders to get rid of policies and, basically shut down border operations and funding of what was happening. On day 1, he signed 3 executive orders. He didn't want to deal with the national embarrassment of what was the influx and border crisis that he's dealing with, so he did make Vice President Kamala Harris the unofficial border czar of his administration. I believe she went down to Texas. She didn't go... I forget exactly where she went, but it was basically a photo op. She didn't meet with any senators or representatives from the state of Texas. She actually went to a station that was actually where the wall was actually built. So obviously there's no illegal immigration happening there because the wall works, right? So she staged a photo op, said there was no problem, met with some local churches and resources down there, and then went back to D.C. And the best of my understanding, hasn't been back to the border since.
Yeah, the current administration has dropped the ball. It's not dropped the ball; it's ignored the ball.
Yes. All right, I'm going to let you just call in questions. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
But let's start. I know you've been waiting.
Well, I'm going to ask a question, but I'm helping you with an answer. The reason you can't use the military at the border, you can only use them in a support role to the Posse Comitatus Act. It forbids the military to be used in a law enforcement role unless martial law is declared. My question is what can we do to help?
Great question. And that's really why we're raising awareness right now, is because we see plenty of people run on platforms that say, we are going to fix immigration. We're going to increase border security and fix immigration. Well, you're never going to fix border security if you don't fix immigration. You're just putting a Band-Aid on a bleeding artery. We need to hold our elected officials accountable. And I'm not specifically talking about Oklahoma elected officials. I think Senator Langford and plenty of Oklahoma representatives are taking this problem very, very seriously. But I would say make a phone call, send an email, talk to somebody, tell them about this problem. Make this let's hold these elected officials accountable. When you say you're going to reform immigration, we want to quit. We don't want to see you kick the can down the road anymore. We don't want you to say something and with no meat to the promise once you're elected. You said you were going to reform immigration. And when I say reform immigration, I don't mean put a big wall up and let nobody in the country. I think Chief Clem said it best. When you have a really tall wall, the best thing you can do is put a fence in it, put a nice size, a good fence in it, right? And allow people to come to this country legally. That's what America was founded on. We're a nation of immigrants, right? So when we say reform immigration, we don't mean shut the door and keep everybody out of America. We mean help people get here the right way and do the right thing. I think if there was one positive takeaway, I know we've sounded doom and gloom the whole time, but if there is one positive takeaway, there are people that want to be here, that come here legally, and we didn't really talk about this, but will wait on they're on, what is it, work visa?
Yeah, work visa, green cards, etc.
Right, they're on work visas and they're on work programs where they will come, they just want to work. They will come, they will work, and they will wait 2 hours to come across the border legally every day to work, and then they wait 2 hours to go back to Mexico to their family because they just want to work. So I think that there are good actors. In fact, I know there are good actors. We just have to figure out who's coming in, and we have to be able to monitor that for national security and for, go ahead.
Why, I mean, Congress has the purse, why don't they put stop to some of the funding for the illegals coming in? Free medicine, all this stuff, they could put a stop to them. And why would they want to come over if they're in danger? I mean, they're not American citizens, they're coming over here illegal.
Okay, your question is why didn't Congress?
Yeah, why don't they put a stop to
That's the
funding?
question. Okay.
They had the purse.
Yeah, immigration reform on a federal level has been at gridlock for years. There's been little substantial progress, like Michael was articulating, to actually deal with this crisis. To answer your question, I just don't know. And that's why we actually went to the border to see the problems for ourselves. That way we can have more boots on ground intelligence and elevate this to our state and federal leaders to discuss why our solution's not taking place. So.
Now, who is actually in charge of the cartel? Are they countries? Is it China? Is it Mexico? Somebody oversees the cartel.
To my knowledge,
We just declare war on the cartel.
to my knowledge, it's the cartel leaders. I don't know of any countries supporting the cartel. Yeah, so
They're like what?
They're like a gang, except
Yeah.
organized. And
Like
like
the
mafia.
Yeah, it's not sanctioned or anything by the official Mexican government or anything else. It's just an independent criminal organization that has the means, the motivation, the patience, and the necessity to do evil and what they need to do.
It's like a much more cruel version of the mafia. We'll do you, then you, and then this gentleman. And then,
I got a question. You hear all kinds of stuff, why they're letting it happen, but what's the real reason? Like Democrats are letting everybody just come across here and free will. What's the end game?
I couldn't answer it, but I can tell you that if you can draw your own conclusion on those kind of things, and whatever the reason is you want to help reform immigration is your personal business, right? I think what we should focus on is that we all want to reform immigration. I don't know if it's because of election fraud or if it's because of, steering the youth or drugs or what the end game is to continue this. But I can tell you that if you're opposed to this for whatever reason, we need to be doing more to contact our legislators. We need to be doing more to talk about this. Don't let this go to the back burner.
And a big problem, just to follow up, is a lot of Americans just think this is a border town crisis. That's Arizona's problem. Sucks for Yuma, right? We've talked to some people since we've got back, and they've said the same thing. Sucks for Yuma. And that's why I threw in the statistics in there about Oklahoma, about fentanyl overdoses, about fentanyl seizures. It's not a border town crisis. It's an American crisis. These people are being flown, transported all across the United States. They're awaiting immigration court states that flood the courts. Drugs are coming across, impacting communities, school children, etc. And it's right here in our backyard. And so many people for so long, they see it on the news, and they'll be in Oklahoma, Indiana, they'll be Ohio, wherever, and they're like, sucks for Yuma, That sounds like an Arizona problem. And what me and Michael found out, one of the big revelations that we found out, is that it's not. It's an American crisis. This is an Oklahoma crisis as much as it is a Yuma crisis. 500 fentanyl overdoses in a year? What are we doing?
It's a Yuma crisis until your family member winds up on that board as a statistic.
Right.
Right. Go ahead.
I'm not an engineer, and there may be an answer to this. Why, if you're building a wall, it seems to me you go section by section by section. How in the hell do you end up with a half mile or 3/4 mile holes between the sections?
Yeah, they talked to us about a lot of it had to do with geographic terrain because of the elevation up there. Sometimes they actually had to, there's the Colorado River that runs through there where it impacts soil or terrain or elevation level, so they have to deal with that. So from one of the individuals that I was talking with, the answer he provided to me was that it's based off geography where they could get the wall up the fastest, and then they would go back in like these specific areas and fill in. So that's the answer I was provided. And again, I'm not an engineer either. So.
Okay, we had this gentleman in the blue right here next. Go.
When you went to Arizona, that says, there's one for the Gnostic Center. Harold, louder, please, can't hear you. When you went to Arizona, that south, in Pennville County, have you met with him? He's waiting for you on the center, his name's Mark Lamb.
Have we went? I'm sorry.
Have you met with him?
Have we met with
Mark Lamb, he's waiting for.
Mark Lamb?
Yeah, so
No.
Pennville County.
No, we haven't. We haven't met with Mark Lamb. No. Go ahead.
Said you had like, close to 2 million encounters. How many over and above that has not been encountered that came over?
Louder, please.
If you have like 2 million, you said had encounters, what's the number over and above that? That's the real number that's coming across the border.
So
That's the ones you just know about.
Yeah, those are the ones we know about, and that's the point, right? If we knew about more, we'd report more.
I have a data point here that Border Patrol told me in Yuma. So just in the Yuma sector, again, 126 miles of the 2,000 border, Yuma Patrol Border told us that just in that sector, there was an estimated 28,000 getaways last year, just within that 126 mile sector. So those are individuals that are not accounted for in those 1.9 million people that have been apprehended. So it's a lot. And again, because they don't have the resources, the manpower, the equipment, the necessities in order, and the wall isn't constructed, it's going to increase over time. So, yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk to Joe and then back to you.
On that, the last statistic I heard was between 1 in 7 and 1 in 10. So, I'll get the question real fast. Was there any talk down there, when you guys were in these meetings and stuff like that, of finding a constructive constitutional method for citizenry, county sheriffs, and stuff like that to take matters into their own hands? Because as you said, once they step foot on our side of the border, their hands are gonna tie. And then the other thing was, is because the reason it doesn't get fixed is because Congress wants to fight. This is an issue that they can campaign on.
Can't hear you, Joe.
Yep.
I was asking if there was if they had any discussion as to a creative constitutional way for the citizenry along the border, the county sheriffs or whatever, to be able to take matters into their own hands, without bloodshed, since the federal government doesn't want to help. And then I was commenting the reason why nothing ever gets done is because both sides of the political aisle use this as something to fight over. So
Right, and so let's quit letting them do that. But I guess to answer the question, I didn't hear of anything like that where citizens could form, for lack of a better word.
you guys were in those closed door meetings talking to people and stuff like that, so I didn't know if
Yeah,
I was floating around some ideas of something trying to,
So the mayor of Yuma has testified to Congress about this, I think 3 or 4 times he told us. In the absence of congressional and federal involvement and solutions, they've had to create bottom-up solutions for themselves. So they're bringing people from the school districts, the agricultural industry, private businesses, local law enforcement, municipal leaders, nonprofit hospital that we spoke to as well is involved down there. So
Very troubling.
because the Biden administration has abandoned them, they've had to come up with their own bottom-up solutions to form this coalition in order to try to deal with this matter themselves. They've essentially like left them hanging. And I remember we were going up to the border, and I remember I wish I would have took a picture of that lady's house. There was a sole house 5 feet away from the border, and she probably had the closest address in the United States. Like it was 5 feet from the wall. Remember the lady that came out with like 3 dogs?
Yeah.
And I remember looking at that house and thinking how abandoned she must feel, how afraid she must feel that all this activity is coming across the border 5 feet away from her backyard, and congressional leaders in the Biden administration have all but abandoned her. She's probably 2,000 plus miles away from D.C., where these solutions are supposed to be solved and handled, like the gentleman said, and she's 5 feet away from the border handling this every day. So in the absence of that, the community has had to come together to try to find solutions as best they can. They're still dealing with challenges, but they're on their own, and that, yeah.
She saw our two big
buses.
charter buses pull up, and she saw them stop in front of her house, and she came out, and I can only imagine what she was expecting to unpile out of the bus, but I'm sure she was glad when we just drove on down the road. We said we'd talk to you, and then we'll go to you next.
Assuming that there's still legal immigration, does that process by-step the cartel?
So could you clarify your question?
Well, legal immigration, I assume, still exists.
Yes.
Oh, it's a slower process. If they go through that process, does that by-step the cartel?
No. So there are people that go through the legal immigration process, but they come here through all different countries and ports of entries, and they don't have to deal or associate with the cartel. It's just people that are coming through via illegal means to smuggle along the southern border that have to go through the cartel. And just point of personal privilege, like I can tell you that my mother went through this. She was born and raised in England. My father met her serving overseas. She came back here. It probably took her about 10 years to get her U.S. citizenship. And every so often, she would have to make drives all the way to Memphis, Tennessee, all the way from Lawton, Oklahoma, and various other places we lived to renew her alien citizenship, her green card, etc. I remember as a kid having to wait in immigration offices in Memphis for about 2 days to process the paperwork. The legal process is a very long, bureaucratic way of becoming a legal, standing, good American in this country. And like Michael was saying, that's one of the incentives for these good actors sometimes that actually want to come across the border. They're incentivized to go the illegal route because the process is just too long. And that's what Michael was talking about, is we need to reform and we need to have a 21st century immigration system.
We'll go to you, and then you. I'll tell you what, we will hang out for another 5 minutes, so for however many questions that allows us.
With all these materials that's already built, what's keeping the states from just taking that into their own hands and finishing the wall? Since the materials are already purchased.
So that's what Governor Greg Abbott has done in Texas. That's what he's continuing to do. He said in the absence of the Biden administration, and because they've neglected their constitutional duties, he's actually using those funds and those materials to actually build up the wall. He's actually been challenged by the Biden administration. I think it is going to court, so I don't know what the end result will be. I'm not a lawyer, but that's in the legal channels now. But some states are doing that, and they are using the means to take that. Unfortunately, not all states are doing that. We drove past the border on our way home from Yuma, and it comes across the Colorado River right next to California, so we could have hung out in California if we wanted to. And I remember sitting next to Michael on that bus looking at the California wall that was just wide open, and I looked at him, I said, Governor Newsom's not going to do anything about that. So you have good actors that want to see the solution, that want and are taking action, but then you have others that just plain and simple aren't going to do it. So.
Because I wanted to know about Governor Abbott, and he was going to send his border patrol people down there, and Biden stopped him from doing that. He got penalized.
Yeah, I believe so. That did happen, and I believe it's in court right now. It's going through the legal channels. But yeah, the Justice Department and the Biden administration did try to block it through legal channels. So. No, I believe he still has his National Guard on the wall. Yes. And Governor Stitt actually just went down, I believe, this week and met with our own Oklahoma National Guardsmen that are on the border. So we have states guardsmen from different states on the border. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take one question here, and then I'm just going to have one question here, and then we're going to do some quick closing remarks, and we want to be respectful of your time and let you guys get on with your day. But I think I'll hang out for a little bit and then talk to some folks if anybody has some questions. So,
What was the question?
Yeah, thank you guys for doing this. Regarding the processing part of this and asylum, I've heard that once they come across, they say, I'm requesting asylum, they get an app, and then they log in the app, and then now they're not illegal anymore, so that brings the numbers down. Can you guys confirm that? Do you know that?
I can't. That wasn't in discussion with the way the process, the Yuma Border Patrol sector talked to us about that process. From our own engagements with the Border Patrol, that wasn't accurate, at least from what we experienced.
but I can't believe we went over this, but what I will tell you is that when you do claim asylum and after your 72 hours is up, Bradley mentioned a hospital, and there's it's a nonprofit hospital funded by the federal government, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
Which would be the Biden administration, and they will actually shuttle you to the airport. So, there's no app, but. No, I think we don't pay for the ticket.
The actual hospital, Michael brought up a good point. The actual hospital in Yuma, Arizona, I believe they only have one regional hospital, and it's $300 million in debt to the federal government that they've provided services for to legal immigrants. And they've already provided the services, and then they filed for reimbursement from the federal government, but they haven't received that money back. I believe it was almost $300 million that they're still waiting for services they've already provided, healthcare, to the illegal immigrants that have crossed. So that's part of the processes and procedures to make sure that a lot of women come across and they're pregnant, and they do that purposefully so that they can come across, give birth in the United States, and they have to provide the medical care for that mother. It's just
Raise your hand if you have a question.
So.
Well, you're not this is question time, please. If we let everybody get up and make a speech, we won't even get to hear from these people. So hold it. Later, if we have time, I'll let everybody get up and make a speech.
Is anyone prepared to offer legal assistance to people that take matters in their own hands near the border? I have a very intimate relationship with someone down in Texas in Eagle Pass. At least 3 times a week, they come home and they find illegals sitting at the dinner table, eating their food in their home. They are armed, the people I know, and they've been advised by the attorneys down there, don't shoot them because the federal government will get you. That's your question. I asked. Is there anybody? I asked the question. I said, is there any legal assistance for people available?
We didn't come across that scenario or that conversation, so I can't say. But
no.
Yeah.
Have you heard of any? I mean, legal assistance available?
No.
I haven't, but that's a really troubling situation. I'm sorry that's happening.
Well, but everybody thinks Texas is so strong in Abbott, and it's not happening.
Hello, I'm Joe Simon Blair, and down in the border, are they really promoting the central digital bank currency? I'm going to say, just say no to central digital bank currency.
No idea.
I don't know. That wasn't discussed in our border security visit. Yeah. No.
Not really a border issue.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they're trying to like track everybody.
I don't know.
Well, that's your subject.
Okay.
Anybody else or?
Excuse me?
Whips.
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I'm gonna get to that. All right, I promise you, I wouldn't come all the way to K County and not tell you about what we do. Last one right here.
Why are the women pregnant?
Why are what? Excuse me.
We don't have to go to that.
Please speak up.
Why are the women pregnant across the borders?
Did you not pay attention in health class in school?
Let's not go to the I kind of got that.
I can't speak for that, but I do know that if you come across the border, a lot of the incentive is there's families that come across the border. They usually come, if you look at the data, most people are traveling in family packs. There's a large number of women that are pregnant that are near childbirth dates that come across the border to specifically have a natural birth in the United States so that the baby can have citizenship and they can't be torn apart from a family unit so the family can stay. That doesn't mean in perpetuity. That just means that as during that immediate time they can stay together.
Okay.
Like forever. So like they can't just, so it's not just like, oh, you're all of you are 100% illegal citizens. There's still a process. I can't speak for that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's give it up for Bradley because Bradley puts this presentation together.
Yeah.
He does an amazing job. I just tag along and I point at this beautiful presentation Bradley's put together. So I appreciate you guys coming out and listening and talking to us today. What I've got for you here are some menus, right? Because if you think that border security and immigration are the only things that the Biden administration is really messing up right now, you're wrong. Look at inflation. Look at government spending. Inflation is on the rise, 40-year high. We're seeing, I left some statistics here, and I won't read them off because I know everyone in here is intelligent enough to read these. But golly, ground beef, 32% of what it was. That's really high. We're Americans for Prosperity, and we're a grassroots organization. So we believe in bottom-up solutions, right? We focus on empowering people to be that voice in their community to make change. So we do things like phone bank and knock doors and really do some of those homegrown activities that are proven to make differences. It's no secret, especially on the state level, that is how politics is still operating, and that's the most effective way to make change. If you'd like to learn more, right here, this is the plug, AmericansForProsperity.org. But if you want something a little bit more Oklahoma specific, we have a state site as well, and that's ProsperityAcrossThePrairie.org. And if you didn't get a chance to write that down, we can talk afterwards. I've got some business cards with all this information that you'll need. But we just really appreciate it. If you take some time, learn about what we do, get involved. It does us absolutely no good to get in these rooms and to talk to other like-minded people about these problems. We come out and we do this because we want you to go out into your community and spread the word and take action. If not, we're just screaming in an echo chamber. I know most of the people in this room are probably very aligned with everything we had to say today. But if we're not doing anything about it, we're just complaining. And that does nobody any good. So, no, this is information on the Biden administration. Oh, I see what you're asking. I bet you it's on the national website. Yeah, I bet you it's on AmericansForProsperity.org. But it's not going to be drawn up as cool looking as this is, right? So.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what we want you to do. That's right. Yes.
Any of you that can't remember how to get hold of them online, just call. Everybody in here's got my card. 3 or 4 of you call me.
One more thing. We are on Facebook. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. If you guys are using any of those social media platforms, go check us out there. I saw some people taking pictures. We absolutely invite it. We want you to talk about this outside of this room with people, so the pictures are completely fine. The only thing that we really ask, honestly, is include us in that. Tag us in those things. Michael Morrison, Bradley Ward, Americans for Prosperity, Oklahoma. Tag us in those posts or when you do that, so that way when we start to see those conversations happening online, we can chime in and we can give our opinions, and we can continue to have the conversation and grow that grassroots movement. I'm seeing hands, but okay. I'll do it. This one and then this one, and then we really do have to go because I know we've got some family obligations today. Right. Okay. Yeah. So days of action. Today is actually a day of action. I believe it or not, I know you guys all think I'm lying. I'm going to go into my truck. I'm going to change clothes at a truck stop. Don't worry. I'm going to go and I'm going to change clothes. I'm going to put on my green AFP t-shirt and some shorts, and I'm going to go knock some doors today. And I'm going to talk to people about tax reform in Oklahoma because I think that that's important. And I think that when you see the current savings account in the state of Oklahoma at $9 billion and inflation on the rise, that it's absolutely crucial that we start giving some of that money back to Oklahoma taxpayers.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Okay, call the Oklahoma U.S. senators and the representatives and leave messages with them. Would it do us any good to call New York, California?
Absolutely. Anywhere you think you can make a change, make those phone calls. But I tell you what, we can do you one better. If you get on AmericansForProsperity.org, you don't have to worry about tracking those numbers down and making those phone calls yourself, because we'll give you a pre-written email that says what you need to say. We'll give you the ability to contact your elected officials in different places. It's all done on our website. It's really easy. It's user-friendly. We don't expect anybody to have to try to jump through all those hoops to figure out who to call. We know the problem. We know the solution. Just help us get there. Thanks, guys.
All right. Couple of final announcements, and then I'll cut y'all loose. First off, the lunch was provided by Americans for Prosperity, so they're the ones to thank for the free pizza. September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th in Phoenix, Arizona at the Marriott Hotel, the Second Amendment Foundation, and if you're not familiar with them, look them up online. There's one of the three, them, GOA, Guns Owners of America, and Firearms Policy Institute. These are the people that are filing these high-dollar lawsuits in court. The Second Amendment Foundation has an active case to strike down the red flag law in Maryland, and they just announced yesterday they're filing multiple lawsuits in multiple states to squash these red flag laws, which are absolutely unconstitutional. If you don't know what a red flag law is, come up and ask me afterwards. Okay, my next OK2A meeting is the 12th of September, second Tuesday, 6 p.m. at Mary's Grill. I've got Officer Woodward, Mark Woodward, from the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. His subject is going to be foreign criminal organizations and their involvement with the medical marijuana business and all of these grow facilities. So that should be a really interesting program. And then on the 23rd here, fourth Saturday of next month, I've got a man named Charlie Key. His subject is going to be the unanswered questions of the Murrah building bombing. That investigation has as many holes in it as the JFK investigation. So spread the word on that. Also, let me just say a few words here. I had a couple of people here got pissed off during question time. I announced before we start that it's about questions. Now, if anybody wants to get up and make a speech now, I'll let you come up and make a speech. But folks, they had to leave. We've only got limited time, and it's not fair to let somebody get up and take 5 or 10 minutes to make a speech. In that time, we could get another 4, 6, 8 questions in. If somebody wants to make speeches at these meetings, I've been doing this almost 4 years. I have yet to have anybody contact me and offer to help me put these together and organize them. This is all my work, folks. When I'm doing all the work, I'm going to run it my way. At my meetings, well, today, everybody in this room that had a question got a chance to ask it. If I'd have let Dan over here make his statement after I asked him not to make a statement, there would have been a couple of people here that would not have had time to get their question answered. So you can think me an a-hole, and you won't be the first person to say that. But these meetings are about getting answers. And if you want to make a speech, you come talk to me. I'll be glad, if you've got a valid speech to make, to schedule it to be the speaker at one of my meetings. So I hope everyone can understand. If not, you can give me a finger on the way out. All right. Thank you for coming. God bless everyone here. God bless AFP for all the hard work they do. They're making things happen in this state. And as I said, they're one of the reasons we've got Ryan Walters as our state superintendent. Thank you. God bless everybody. See you next meeting.